snooping male invaded my bedroom, so I left a giant dildo on my pillow for her to find. Her reaction was priceless. Right, so this all kicked off when I was still, very much unhappily, as it turned out, married to my now ex-husband. Let's just call him hubby for simplicity, though honestly, Mummy's boy Marionette might be more accurate. For context, you need to know I have a particular dislike for people messing with my things or being in my space uninvited. I wouldn't say I'm a neat freak exactly, but I like things my way, in my home. And yes, alright, maybe I can be a bit petty when pushed. Learned from the best, my mom. Passive aggression might as well be my middle name sometimes. Hubby, on the other hand, seemed to have the backbone of a jellyfish, especially when it came to his mother. We'd been married maybe a year, scraped together enough for a deposit, and ended up renting a townhouse. Not exactly the dream, but it was a roof. The catch? It was in this sprawling condo complex, a sort of manicured suburban nightmare where, oh, joy of joys, his parents also lived, literally a few buildings over. A 5-minute walk if Emil was feeling particularly speedy, which she often was when nosing was involved. Hubby thought this was brilliant. So convenient, he'd chirped. Convenient for him, maybe. He worked nearby, could pop around for tea, and probably get his laundry done whenever he fancied. Me? My office was clear across town. We're talking an hour and a half each way on a series of increasingly depressing buses that rarely ran on time. My family, the people I actually wanted to see, even further. But hubby wanted to be near his mummy and daddy, didn't he? And apparently my commute, my sanity, my desire to not live practically in my in-laws' pocket didn't really factor into the equation. He was already 27 when we moved in, by the way. Old enough to cut the apron strings, you'd think. Apparently not. His mom, let's call her M.I.L., because she certainly earned the monster-in-law type, still treated him like he was about 12. I'm fairly sure she still occasionally packed him a lunch, despite him being a grown man with a wife who could, theoretically, make a sandwich. He'd often come home with containers of her cooking, enough to feed an army, even though I'd already planned our meals. He'd ring her daily, sometimes multiple times, for advice on things a functioning adult really ought to manage themselves. It drove me spare. But early days, you try to keep the peace, don't you? You bite your tongue. Oh, how I learned to regret that. The real trouble started with the key. M.I.L. had one naturally. Just for emergencies, hubby had said breezily, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Apparently, M.I.L.'s definition of emergency included things like, OP hasn't rearranged her kitchen cupboards to my exact specifications, or, I suspect there might be dust somewhere. It began subtly. I'd come home knackered after my 3-hour round-trip commute, wanting nothing more than to collapse on the sofa and notice things weren't quite right. The mugs would be in a different cupboard. Why? Because Mael had decided her system was more logical, dear. Cereal boxes swapped shelves, tins rearranged by height, or maybe occult significance, who knows? It was baffling and irritating. Why was she even in our kitchen? Then it was the laundry. I came home one day to find the basket empty, which was odd because I knew I'd left a load needing doing. Then I saw the pile on the bed. Clean, yes, but smelling faintly of that awful, cloying floral detergent Mael loved, the one that gave me headaches. And my favorite jumper, the wool one, looked suspiciously like it might now fit a borrower. Hubby's reaction when I complained? Oh, Mum must have popped over. Wasn't that nice of her? Saves us a job. Never mind the jumper or the fact I like doing my own washing, with my own non-headache-inducing powder. Next, it was the dishes. I'd wash up after dinner, leave things to air dry on the rack like a normal person. Come home the next day, rack empty, dishes put away, but not where I usually kept them. Stacked differently. Almost like someone was implying my washing wasn't up to scratch and they'd had to redo it. Passive-aggressive much? The thermostat wars began. I like a cool house, especially for sleeping. Hubby ran hot, like a furnace. We'd usually compromise somewhere in the middle, but I started coming home to find the heating cranked up to tropical levels. You could practically grow orchids in the hallway. It would take ages to cool down, and I'd just know MIL had been over, shivering in her cardigan, and decided we needed warming up. Never mind our energy bill. Then came the deep cleaning assaults. One week, I came home nearly knocked sideways by the smell of bleach. She'd apparently decided our bathroom sink wasn't sparkling to her standards and had scoured it to within an inch of its life. I used gentle, eco-friendly cleaners because harsh chemicals triggered my migraines. Did she know that? Probably. Did she care? Clearly not. The fumes lingered for days. And the bloody cushions. MIL had questionable taste. Let's call it early noughties catalog chic. She started bringing over these truly hideous decorative items, sequined cushions that shed everywhere, porcelain kittens with creepy glass eyes, potpourri bowls filled with dried brown things that smelled vaguely of disappointment, and she wouldn't just give them to us. She'd place them, rearrange my nice, plain sofa cushions to make space for her glittery monstrosities, put the creepy kitten right in my eye line in the living room. I'd move them back. Next time I came home, they'd be back in her preferred spot. It was like a silent, deeply aesthetically offensive battle of wills. Each time I'd bring it up with hubby. Look, your mum was here again. She's rearranged the kitchen again. Or, my jumper's ruined. Or, can you please ask her not to leave those awful cushions everywhere? And each time the same response, dismissal, minimization, sometimes even a hint of accusation. Oh, she's just trying to help, love. Don't be ungrateful, she means well. She's bored. It gives her something to do now Dad's retired. Honestly, it saves us time, doesn't it? Just move the cushions back if you don't like them, it's not a big deal. But it was a big deal. It was my home, our home, and it felt like we constantly had this uninvited, unwelcome presence rearranging things, leaving her scent, silently criticizing our way of life. It was driving me utterly bonkers. And hubby? He just wouldn't hear it. Talk to her? Why? It'll just upset her. Upset her? What about upsetting me? Apparently, my feelings didn't warrant risking Mummy getting a bit miffed. The pattern continued, and maybe I started getting a bit paranoid, checking things when I got home. Were the towels folded differently? Had that pile of mail been moved? Then came the more blatant stuff. We went away for a long weekend, visiting my family, a rare treat. We got back late Sunday night, tired and ready for our own bed. Walked in, and the house felt wrong, cold. Every single window in the place was cracked open in late October. Airing the place out, hubby guessed. Yeah, airing it out while simultaneously freezing us half to death and doubling our heating bill. Thanks, MIL. Then, the living room furniture started migrating. Just slightly. The sofa nudged a few inches to the left. My favorite reading chair, the comfy one I'd positioned perfectly by the lamp, angled slightly differently, further from the window. It was subtle, but it was happening, like she was trying to improve the layout without actually asking. My craft corner was next. I knit, badly, but it relaxes me. I had a basket with yarn, needles, a pattern book. Came home one day, and it had been tidied. Yarn balls rewound tightly, too tightly. Needles stuck back in the wrong packets, pattern book tucked away on a shelf. It completely disrupted my flow and felt, again, like a criticism, like my creative mess wasn't acceptable. The clincher was when MIL started revealing things she couldn't possibly know unless she'd been inside, snooping properly. "Oh, I saw that parcel you were waiting for finally arrived," she said brightly over the phone one evening. A parcel I hadn't even mentioned to her, that had arrived that day while we were both at work. Or, noticed you'd run out of biscuits, so I picked up some digestives for hubby. How did she notice unless she was peering in our cupboards? And then my secret chocolate stash. I kept a bar of the good stuff, the expensive dark chocolate, hidden at the back of the pantry for emergencies. Read, bad days at work. Went to get it one evening. Gone. Replaced with a half-eaten packet of hubby's favorite cheap milk chocolate buttons. The rage was disproportionate, I admit, but it was the principle. She'd not only been snooping, she'd eaten my damn chocolate. This time, I didn't just complain to hubby. I confronted him properly. Laid it all out. The constant intrusions, the rearranged furniture, the hobby sabotage, the parcel comment, the bloody chocolate. She is letting herself into our house whenever she feels like it. She is going through our things. This has to stop. You have to talk to her. He got defensive. Really defensive. Turned it around on me. Said I was being suspicious, paranoid, making mountains out of molehills. Accused me of being ungrateful for all the help she provided. We had a huge row. He basically implied I was the problem, that I was deliberately trying to cause trouble between him and his precious mummy. It was infuriating. He still refused point blank to say anything to her. I thought that was the worst of it. I was wrong. A few days later I came home, went upstairs to get changed out of my work clothes. Something felt off in the bedroom. The wardrobe doors, usually firmly shut, were slightly ajar. Just a crack. I looked inside. My clothes seemed neater, hung differently. My shoes on the bottom shelf, usually kicked off in a heap, were lined up in pairs. My stomach lurched. Number. Surely not. I went over to my dressing table. My makeup, usually scattered about in the order I used it that morning, was arranged in neat little rows. My face creams lined up by height. My hairbrush placed exactly parallel to the edge. Someone had clearly been here. Tidying. Wiping down surfaces that didn't need wiping. Touching my things, my personal things. My heart was hammering now. I had a horrible sinking feeling. With trembling hands, I opened my underwear drawer, and there it was, undeniable proof. My bras, usually just folded haphazardly, were now neatly stacked, color-coordinated. My knickers, which I just shoved in, were folded into perfect, identical little squares, sorted by type. Someone, she, had had her hands all over my most private garments, folding them, organizing them, judging them. I felt physically sick, violated. It wasn't about tidiness. It was about boundaries, privacy, respect, all of which had just been utterly bulldozed. That was it. The absolute final straw. I stormed downstairs, shaking with rage. Hubby was already home, lounging on the sofa, oblivious. I didn't shout, not at first. My voice was dangerously quiet. She was in our bedroom. She went through my underwear drawer. I expected, well, I don't know what I expected. Shock? Apology? A sudden dawning realization that his mother was a boundary-stomping nightmare? Nope. What I got was a masterclass in deflection and blame shifting. First, the attack. Well, maybe if you kept things tidier in there. He actually had the audacity to say, not even looking at me, she wouldn't feel the need to help out, like it was my fault she was rifling through my knickers. Then, minimization. He waved a dismissive hand. Oh, you're exaggerating. It's not a big deal. So she tidied a drawer? Just ignore it. What harm does it really do? Followed by emotional blackmail. Look, it would break her heart if I said anything now. She obviously just thinks she's being a good mom, helping us get settled, making it nice for us. And finally, the appeal to his normal, honestly, it's just her way. It's how she shows she cares. You just don't understand our family. She's always done things like this for me. He just didn't get it. Or worse, he didn't want to get it. His mother's feelings and ways were infinitely more important than his wife's privacy and sanity. I stared at him, the full extent of his mummy enmeshment hitting me like a physical blow. He was never going to stand up to her. He was never going to put me or our marriage first. If I wanted this to stop, asking him was utterly pointless. I was on my own. A cold, hard resolve settled over me. Fine. If he wouldn't fix it, I would. But not by having another useless argument with him. Oh no. If Mummy wanted to snoop in my private space, I'd make damn sure she found something she wouldn't forget in a hurry. That evening, fuming, I retreated to my laptop. Not for work emails, not for online shopping. I typed in Reddit Justnomill. I'd vaguely heard of it, a place where people shared horror stories about nightmare mothers-in-law. I started reading. And reading. Post after post echoed my situation. The uninvited help, the boundary stomping, the passive aggression, the partners who refused to see it. It was horrifyingly validating. I wasn't crazy. This wasn't normal. Amongst the advice, therapy, gray rocking, moving to another continent, were threads about countermeasures. Small acts of petty revenge designed to make the snooping environment distinctly uncomfortable. People who'd left embarrassing magazines lying around. People who'd forgotten to clean the toilet before MIL's expected visit. And yes, people who'd strategically placed certain adult items. A little spark ignited within my petty passive-aggressive heart. Yes, that might just work. It was childish, perhaps. Definitely passive-aggressive. But given hubby's spinelessness, it felt like the only language Mill might actually understand. The plan formed quickly. It needed to be unambiguous. Something she couldn't possibly pretend she hadn't seen. Something that screamed, private adult business here, go away. Discretion was key. I couldn't risk hubby finding it beforehand, or mail intercepting the delivery. I waited until I was at work the next day, used my lunch break and my work computer. After a bit of searching on sites that promised plain packaging, I found it, ordered online, paid with my own card, and arranged for delivery to a collection point near my office. Perfect. A few days later, I picked up the plain brown box. It felt surprisingly heavy. Carrying it home on the bus felt illicit, fueling a strange mix of nervousness and giddy anticipation. I hid it deep within my wardrobe, behind some old bags. Now, all I had to do was wait for the right moment. I started paying closer attention to Mill's patterns. She usually popped over, midweek, Tuesdays or Wednesdays, while we were both safely out of the house. The following Tuesday morning, I put the plan into action. Before leaving for work, I went into the bedroom. I deliberately left the duvet rumpled, a shirt slung over the back of the chair, like bait. Then I retrieved the box, opened it. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was quite possibly the largest, most ridiculously shaped, bright crimson dildo I had ever seen. It was obscene. It was glorious. It was perfect. Taking a deep breath, heart doing a frantic drum solo against my ribs, I placed it, not hidden away. Oh no, I put it right there, squarely in the middle of my pillow, my side of the bed. Impossible to miss. Gleaming under the morning light filtering through the curtains, a silent, shocking sentinel guarding my violated space. I took one last look, smirked, and left for work, feeling a heady cocktail of fear, adrenaline, and pure, unadulterated pettiness. The day dragged. Every email ping, every phone buzz made me jump. I tried to focus on spreadsheets, but my mind kept replaying Emil opening the bedroom door, seeing it. What would she do? Scream? Faint? Pretend she hadn't seen it? The call came around 3 p.m. Hubby's name flashed on my screen. I let it ring twice before answering, adopting my most innocent professional phone voice. "Hello? What the bloody hell did you leave on the bed?" he screeched, so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. There was genuine panic in his voice, mixed with fury. "Mom was just here. She came over to drop off some dry cleaning. She just glanced in the bedroom. She saw it. She's had to go home. She's in shock. Are you insane?" I paused, letting the silence hang for a beat. Then, cool as a cucumber, on the outside anyway, I replied, "Oh, that? What a shame she saw it." My voice dripped with faux sympathy. "Still, if you'd actually respected my privacy and spoken to her weeks ago like I begged you to, she wouldn't have been snooping in our bedroom in the first place now, would she?" Click. I hung up before he could respond. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur. I packed up my desk, feeling strangely light. The bus ride home was filled with grim satisfaction. The atmosphere in the townhouse that evening was colder than a witch's tit in January. Hubby was radiating pure, unadulterated fury. He didn't shout. Worse, he gave me the silent treatment, stonewalling me completely. If looks could kill, I'd have been disintegrated on the doorstep. He spent the evening pointedly ignoring me, watching TV with the volume up loud, pointedly not asking about my day or acknowledging my existence. Later, just before he retreated to the spare room, oh yes, he actually slept in the spare room, he finally broke his silence, his voice tight with resentment. "You really hurt my mother, you know," he hissed. "She was just trying to be nice, look after us, and you deliberately humiliated her. How could you be so cruel? You should think about how she feels." Not a word about how I felt having my underwear drawer rifled through. Not a flicker of understanding. Just defensive mummy and blame for me. Fine. Let him sulk. Let Mill clutch her pearls. Because you know what? From that day forward, MIL never set foot in our bedroom again. Not once. She'd hover at the doorway sometimes, peering in nervously, but she never crossed the threshold. The rest of the house was still fair game, occasionally. But the bedroom? The bedroom was mine again. Petty? Absolutely. Effective? 100%. Worth the Arctic chill that descended upon my marriage? At the time, yes. It felt like a victory. A small, slightly sordid victory, but a victory nonetheless. I should have realized, though, that winning that particular battle meant the war was far from over. It was just getting started. Edit. Seeing some comments asking if she snooped in hubby's stuff too. Honestly, not that I noticed. It always seemed to be my things being rearranged, tidied, or criticized implicitly, like rewashing my hand-washed dishes, messing with my hobby stuff, and ultimately, my underwear drawer. Makes it feel even more personal. So, the Operation Bedroom Shield was, I have to admit, a roaring success. The Arctic blast from hubby eventually thawed into a sort of grumpy resignation, but the key thing was, MIL treated our bedroom door like it was radiating plague germs. She wouldn't even peek in. Victory! I allowed myself a few smug weeks, enjoying the newfound sanctity of my personal space. Finally, a corner of the house that didn't feel like it was under enemy surveillance. But, oh, you sweet summer child, did you think that would be the end of it? Did you think a woman who rearranged your knickers for fun would be permanently deterred by one scarlet knock? Of course not. Mill wasn't defeated. She merely regrouped. Like a particularly persistent fungus, denied one damp corner, she simply started sprouting in others. With the bedroom off limits, her tactics shifted. Denied direct physical intrusion into my most private space, she launched a two-pronged attack, psychological warfare via hubby, and increased physical presence when I couldn't escape. The whispers to hubby started first. I noticed a change in him. He'd come home and relay MIL's concerns, always phrased innocently, "Of course. Mom's just worried you seem a bit stressed, dear. Are you coping all right at work?" Translation: Mill thinks you're losing it. Or, Mom mentioned she saw a recipe for that casserole you like. Maybe you should try her version? Translation: Mill thinks your cooking is crap. Sometimes it was more direct, couched as hubby's own observation, but clearly parroting Mill. Are you sure that skirt isn't a bit short? Or, maybe we should save more money. Cut back on your little online shopping habit. Ignoring his own much larger spending on gadgets. It was subtle, insidious, designed to undermine my confidence and paint me as incompetent or unstable, all filtered through my oblivious or willful ignorant husband. Then came the visits. Since she couldn't snoop while I was out, she started popping by constantly when I was in, usually evenings just as I'd kicked off my shoes after the hellish commute, or weekends when I was desperately trying to decompress. The doorbell would ring, and there she'd be, beaming falsely. Just thought I'd see if you needed anything. Or had some leftover cake. Always an excuse. And once inside, the criticism would start, disguised as helpful advice. "Oh, you missed a spot dusting here, dear. Are you sure you want to hang that picture there? That color doesn't really suit you, does it?" It was relentless. My home, my supposed sanctuary, became a place where I was constantly on edge, waiting for the next unsolicited opinion or inspection. Relaxing was impossible. And just to add insult to injury, the gossip mill started churning. Hubby's sister, who was generally okay, awkwardly mentioned one day, "Mom was saying you're finding the house upkeep a bit much." I hadn't said anything of the sort. Clearly, MIL was now painting me as overwhelmed and incapable to the wider family, probably justifying her previous intrusions and current helpful visits. It made my blood boil. She was twisting the narrative, making me the problem, the inadequate wife her precious son was burdened with. Naturally, hubby saw none of this. When I pointed out the pattern, the relayed criticisms, the constant draining visits, the gossip, he'd roll his eyes. "She's just being friendly. You're being too sensitive. She's probably just trying to make conversation." "Stop being so unwelcoming! She's my mother!" He refused to see the malice, the deliberate campaign to wear me down and reassert her dominance now that direct snooping was off the table. Life in the condo complex started feeling like living under siege. It wasn't just MIL either. FIL, hubby's dad, began adding his own special brand of unpleasantness. He'd always been a bit leery, but now, perhaps sensing the tension or my perceived vulnerability, he ramped it up. He'd accidentally corner me by the bins, getting too close. He started making comments about my clothes, my figure, always with this creepy little smirk. "Looking very nice today, OP," he'd say, his eyes doing a slow crawl up and down. He even told hubby once, who idiotically told me, thinking it was some sort of compliment, "Your wife's got cracking legs on her. If I were 30 years younger..." It made my skin crawl. I started timing my trips outside, dreading running into him. And hubby just chuckled awkwardly. "Oh, Dad's harmless. Just ignore him." Harmless. It felt violating. I felt exposed and unsafe, not just in my home thanks to Mill, but outside it too thanks to Phil. The absolute rock-bottom moment of realizing just how little hubby had my back, however, came disguised as a moment of vulnerability. I was having a really tough time at work. Project deadlines, difficult boss, the usual corporate hellscape. I was anxious, losing sleep. One evening, feeling low, I actually confided in hubby. Told him about the stress, the specific worries keeping me awake, how insecure I felt about a particular presentation coming up. I needed support, reassurance. He listened, sort of, made vague, sympathetic noises. Less than 2 days later, Mill popped over while hubby was there. I was trying to work on the presentation. She perched on the edge of the sofa, watching me. Then, with that faux sweet tone she used when she was about to stick the knife in, she said, "Hubby was telling me you're feeling a bit overwhelmed with work, dear. Don't worry yourself into a state. It's probably not as important as you think. Maybe ask one of the men at work to handle the tricky bits." I froze. The specific phrasing, "overwhelmed," "don't worry yourself into a state." It was almost word for word what I'd told hubby in confidence. He had run straight to Mummy and spilled everything. My anxieties, my insecurities handed over like ammunition for her to use against me. The betrayal stung, sharp and deep. He wasn't just failing to protect me, he was actively feeding the enemy. I felt like the world's biggest fool forever thinking I could lean on him. That was it. The deal was phase 1. A defensive measure. Now I needed phase 2. An offensive strike. Something that didn't just stop the snooping, but addressed the root of the problem. Mael's entitlement and hubby's enabling. Passive aggression hadn't fundamentally changed anything. Direct confrontation hadn't worked. A plan began to form, inspired partly by the malicious compliance stories I devoured online. If she was so desperate to help, maybe I should just let her. Really let her. The perfect opportunity presented itself a few weeks later. Mill's birthday dinner, held at their place naturally. The whole clan was there. Hubby's sister, her husband, FEL, Mill holding court. The atmosphere was already strained. I was polite but distant, still simmering from the betrayal. FIL kept trying to catch my eye with that creepy leer. Hubby was oblivious, basking in Mummy's attention. Dinner was Mael's cooking. Need I say more? Afterwards, we were having coffee in the living room. I was trying to blend into the wallpaper when Phil, perhaps emboldened by the wine or just feeling particularly nasty, turned his attention to me. He started quizzing me about my job, condescendingly, implying it wasn't a real career. Then, loud enough for everyone to hear, he gestured towards me with his coffee cup and announced, "Well, at least she keeps hubby happy in other ways, eh?" Followed by a wink and a disgusting chuckle. Mael didn't bat an eyelid, just smirked into her cup. Hubby went bright red, mumbled something incoherent, and stared fixedly at the carpet. He said nothing, did nothing. just sat there while his father publicly reduced me to some sort of sexual appliance. In that moment, watching hubby's utter failure to defend me, combined with the memory of him blabbing my secrets to Mill, something inside me snapped. The anger wasn't hot this time. It was ice cold. Crystal clear. Right. Game on. Phase 2 commenced the very next day. Mill, emboldened by the previous night's non-confrontation, popped by mid-morning on Saturday. "Just bringing hubby some scones I baked," she announced, barging past me. "Oh, Miel, you're an angel," I gushed, perhaps a little too brightly. Perfect timing. I was just about to tackle the bathroom sink drain. "It's completely blocked, probably with my hair," I added, wrinkling my nose apologetically. "You're so much better at those practical things than I am. Would you mind terribly having a look while I put the kettle on? The plunger and those rubber gloves you like are under the sink." Mil blinked. Dealing with my hair clogs wasn't quite the same as rearranging cushions. "Oh, well," she began, clearly taken aback. "Thank you. You're a lifesaver," I chirped, already heading to the kitchen, leaving her standing there awkwardly by the bathroom door. I heard some reluctant shuffling, some sighs, eventually the sound of plunging. It took her nearly 20 minutes. When she emerged, looking slightly flushed and disgruntled, I presented her with a cup of tea and another beaming smile. "All sorted?" "Oh, thank you, Mil. I don't know what I'd do without you." Hubby walked in just then. "Look, darling," I exclaimed. "Your mum fixed the sink for us. Isn't she amazing?" Mil managed a tight smile. Hubby looked confused but pleased. Round one to me. A few days later, she was back. "Just checking if you needed any bread?" "Mill, so thoughtful," I beamed. "Actually, since you're here, I inherited this hideous old silver tea set from a great aunt." I hadn't. I'd bought it for £10 at a charity shop specifically for this purpose. "And it's terribly tarnished. I haven't the first clue how to clean silver properly, and you're always so good at making things sparkle. Would you mind giving it a quick polish while I finish this report for work? I'd be eternally grateful." I produced the monstrously ornate blackened tea set and a tub of foul-smelling silver polish. Her face fell. Polishing intricate silver wasn't her idea of helping either. But refusing after I'd praised her sparkling skills, it would look churlish. She sighed, martyr-like, and sat down with the teapot and a rag. It took her over an hour. Again, I laid on the gratitude thickly, especially when hubby got home. "Can you believe how wonderful Mum is? Look how this shines now." Mil looked exhausted. Hubby looked impressed by the shiny teapot. The pièce de résistance came the following weekend. We had friends coming over for lunch. Mil knew this, and predictably, arrived an hour beforehand to see if she could lend a hand. "Oh, Mill," I greeted her, feigning slight panic. "You've arrived just in time. Disaster! The downstairs loo. It's completely blocked. Someone," I gave a pointed look towards the living room where hubby was pretending to read the paper, "must have used way too much paper, and I just can't face dealing with it before our guests arrive. You're always so calm in a crisis. Would you be an absolute saint and tackle it? The heavy-duty plunger and the strongest bleach are in the cupboard." The color drained from Mill's face. Unblocking a toilet, especially one potentially blocked by her precious son? This was several leagues below helpful rearranging, or even polishing dusty heirlooms. She actually stammered. "Me? Oh, I don't think... Please, Mil?" I clasped my hands together, adopting my most pathetic damsel in distress expression. "I feel quite faint just thinking about it." "You'd be saving the day. I'll get started on the canapes." Boxed in. Refusing would expose her helpfulness as entirely conditional and self-serving. Doing it was unthinkable. She stood frozen for a moment, looking utterly horrified. Then, with a look of pure thunder directed solely at me, which I met with wide-eyed innocence, she turned stiffly towards the downstairs toilet. I retreated to the kitchen, trying very hard not to laugh out loud. The sounds that emanated from the loo for the next 15 minutes were unpleasant, very unpleasant. When she finally emerged, pale and tight-lipped, I rushed over. "All clear?" "Oh, Mil, thank you, thank you. You are truly incredible. I owe you big time." I made sure to repeat my effusive thanks later, loudly, when our friends arrived and hubby was present. "Honestly, Emil saved us from a major disaster just before you got here. So practical." Mail looked like she wanted the ground to swallow her whole. Hubby just looked baffled, vaguely proud of his mum's practicality while missing the entire subtext. The change wasn't immediate, but it was undeniable. Mill's offers of help dried up completely. The constant popping by slowed to a trickle, then virtually stopped. When she did visit, she needed a specific invitation and a clear reason. She kept her opinions mostly to herself. She seemed wary, beaten, The weapon of helpfulness had been turned against her and blown up in her face. She couldn't offer without risking being asked to scrub toilets. She couldn't intrude without the memory of the looming large. Hubby, bless his cotton socks, never fully grasped what had happened. He occasionally commented that, "Mum doesn't seem to come round as much," or "Mum seems a bit quiet lately." I'd just smile sweetly and say, "Maybe she's finally realized we can manage on our own." He sometimes got grumpy that he now had to do things MIL used to help with, but that was his problem. I had successfully, maliciously, complied my way to peace. FIL's creepy comments also tapered off, perhaps because MIL was no longer providing a united front of passive aggression, or maybe my newfound icy confidence unnerved him. Whatever the reason, I could walk to the bins without feeling like prey. So, was it petty? God, yes. Was it manipulative? Probably. Did I stoop to her level? Absolutely. But you know what? It worked. I finally had breathing room in my own home. The constant undermining stopped. The anxiety of waiting for the next intrusion eased. I had taken control back, using the only language my MIL and by extension, my enabling husband, seemed to understand. The victory felt sweet, deeply satisfying. I'd fought the MIL monster and won. I could finally relax, put my feet up, maybe even leave my underwear drawer in a comfortable state of disarray without fear of invasion. Of course, the fact that I'd had to resort to dildos and weaponized toilet plunging to get basic respect in my own marriage, well, that probably spoke volumes about the future of the marriage itself. But that, as they say, is another story. For now, revenge was achieved, peace was declared, and it felt bloody marvelous. That's all for this story. I'll be back with another one. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. It motivates me to create more content like this.